Welcome to Transformation Tales, a podcast by Shanda, where we celebrate the heroic journeys of storytellers. I am your host, Dumi Mabhena, and each week we'll bring you inspiring stories of creators who found their voice, overcame challenges, and transformed through the power of podcasting. Get ready to be motivated as we explore the growth and triumphs and the amazing stories of the people that inspire us to do what we do. And maybe I'll start from the beginning. For everyone listening, I'm with Almi, who I met at a podcast workshop. Was it 2 weeks ago?
Yeah.
2 or 3, I think.
Yeah.
And it was really cool, I guess, getting to meet everyone at the CCT program. I felt like everyone was like, I think modern journalists, if I can call it that. Is that a good way to call it?
Yeah, no, that's how I describe my program to other people, because the full name is Communication, Culture and Technology,
right?
Which is quite a long one. So I usually just go, I'm doing journalism, modern journalism,
with digital journalism in a way. Yeah, so I met you at the podcast workshop, and it was really cool seeing the stories everyone wanted to tell. And as you know, with this podcast, Transformation Tales, we like to tell the stories of the storyteller. And I saw, of course, the stories that you wanted to tell and the stories you're telling already on YouTube, etc. And everyone was walking past your screen being like, whoa, this is cool. This is really cool. So thank you so much for taking the time to be with me. The first question I'm going to ask you is, who is Almi and where does she come from?
Oh, that's a big question to start with. Who is Almi? Well, as you can probably tell from my accent, I'm from the UK, and I've come to Georgetown for a master's. I'm on a scholarship for athletics, and I saw it as a way of carrying on with all the running, and also doing something else at the same time, so studying for the masters, which is not such a big thing in the UK. There's a lot less funding for sports in the UK.
Interesting. And when you were, I know we spoke, of course, prior to this, and you grew up in a bunch of different places, but when you were growing up, did you always want to become a competitive runner?
I think probably yes, because so I grew up in Ethiopia, and there's lots of amazing distance runners there. And then, so kind of probably as a teenager and as a child, I was inspired by them. And then as I've got older, I've learnt more because my dad was an athlete, so the whole family situation has meant that, sport's always been a big part of my life.
I was actually, when I was doing my research, I discovered your dad ran for Team GB, didn't he?
He did.
In the Olympics.
He did.
As a marathon runner, I think. And which is really fascinating. And I guess, do you have siblings?
I've got a younger brother.
Do they also run competitively? Or is it just you?
He cycles.
Okay. Was it ever expectation that, I guess, when you're a kid, you look up to your parents in some way, shape or form. Was there ever an expectation that you should be a competitive runner, or was it just a natural thing that to your earlier point, that you're around, and then it became, oh, okay, well, that's what we do, so.
Yeah, so it never, in Ethiopia, I never, pursued running that seriously, but I was young, so we left Ethiopia when I was 10, and then when we arrived in the UK, I started running at a kids club, but I think I was doing lots of other sports at that point, so I don't feel like my parents kind of pushed me into running.
Sure.
It was more just sports, and I think that had been a big part of my dad's upbringing, especially as well, but kind of I don't know, keep them out of trouble, do sports. And then I think definitely, I can't deny sport is a big part of our family. But I've never felt like I've been pushed towards doing sport. If I decided tomorrow that I didn't want to do sport, then that would be so fun, Yeah.
And why did you? When I was in high school, I'll tell you. Thanks for sharing that. When I was in high school, I wanted to play professional rugby a long time ago, and I actually applied to Loughborough, which is a school in the UK, and I got in to a sports science degree. Fun fact, and I didn't do it because in the UK it's like a 3-year degree, and if you want to change halfway through, it's like you have to change everything. Whereas in the US, it's a bit more liberal. 4 years, liberal arts. Or in Scotland, it's the same way I studied. You can do 4 years and you can change. You decide later in your degree what you want to actually do. And I didn't go to Loughborough because I wanted some flexibility and I did change my degree. But the question I had for you is, I know you went to Leeds. What did you study and what do you want to do at that time? Was it like, okay, I want to be a professional, runner? Or why Leeds? What did you study and what was the
no, I still don't know what I want to do, and I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do then. But I studied French and Spanish, and I love going to new places, speaking to different people, and I think being able to speak another language allows you to do that to another level and connect to people like on that deeper level. And in the UK, part of the French and Spanish, or part of language degrees, is that you go and spend a year abroad.
Yeah.
So that was an amazing part of my program. And
so you speak 3 languages?
Yeah, I'd say 4.5.
4.5. Wow. Which ones?
So English, French, Spanish, German, and then some Amharic, but I've forgotten a lot.
Wow. Okay. Insane. Okay. So languages was the thing, and you did a year abroad. Were you still running competitively at that time?
Or? Yes. Okay. Yeah. But yeah, I had quite a few bad injuries during my undergrad degree in the UK. So it was kind of like on and off. When I went to France, I was actually injured, or I was getting back from injury. So, I mean, it was nice. I feel like it gave me a chance to explore and see myself outside of sport, which I think is really important.
Yes, I want to dig into that a little bit more. I've had many injury, and I think sometimes when you're competitive in, let's say, a sport, you begin to identify as an athlete or what have you, which is fine. But sometimes, like when the injuries happen, it can shake your identity or what you believe to be true about yourself, and that's very challenging for most athletes. So I want to figure out what did you learn during the injuries? That's one, and then 2, when did the storytelling aspect come into it? Like you're studying that now, but when did that become a thing that have you always been doing that? But yeah, maybe we'll start first out with the injuries and then we'll come to the storytelling part after.
So kind of what I've learned. Yeah, I guess from the injuries in a sporting sense, I learned that patience is key. And I guess that's transferred to other areas of my life.
Why is patience key?
I think I was a teenager and then starting university, I was like, oh, yeah, I want to be a professional athlete, and it'll come to me. It'll just come like that. And I think that was, I don't know where that came from, that this thing, that kind of like idea that it'd be that easy. I think I also was surrounded by lots of good athletes, both at home before going to university, so in my club, and then at university I lived with some crazy good athletes. So that kind of, it meant that the jump from where I was to being a professional or kind of like Olympic level athlete didn't seem that big, because I was already mixing with these kind of people. But then I think, so obviously there's loads of positives to that, because you see how they live and you can learn from them. But I think it also meant that I accelerated my journey too much, and when my body wasn't ready.
Oh, interesting. And so you learned in that process, okay, I'm doing a bit too much. Maybe I now have my injuries. Then I've learned that I have to be patient in getting towards this goal. What else did you learn? And did you think of saying, okay, maybe not that I'm done with sport, or were there moments where you're like, maybe what else can I? Because when you're injured, you have downtime and you have time to just, like, I've had knee surgeries and like for months you can't do anything. So what did you do when you were injured, and what did you learn about yourself?
So when I went to France, in my second year of university in the UK, I got a stress fracture in my femur. And so that meant that was like no running for 3 months. And those 3 months, it actually was very well timed. But those 3 months I spent in Bordeaux in France, and we had language class in the morning and then just free time around it. And during that time, I mean, I was in the gym on the cross trainer and, doing my rehab, but that didn't take up as much time or I didn't let that take up as much time as my usual training would have. And what did I learn? I don't know. I don't think I came to a realization, this is what I could be, or this is what
it was just, I'm just injured.
I was just like, oh, this is fun.
Right.
And I just had more time to do other things, that I now don't have so much time to do. So I think that was a nice kind of break. And then going to Spain, I traveled around a lot doing races. So by this point, I wasn't injured anymore, but I was getting back into fitness. So I was going to the races and I wasn't finishing very high up, but then people were still speaking to me. I was like, oh, people like me not for my performances, but just for who I am.
Did you think was a good point? Do you think before it was the opposite? Do you believed that?
Yeah, I don't think I actively thought, oh, well, they don't like me if I don't finish in this position. But I think subconsciously there must have been some sort of thought like that, because I remember that year in Spain was really, important to me, and realizing that the people that I want to be surrounded by, and the people, and just that people valued me for more than my performances. And I feel like it's a dumb thing to say, because I don't value people off how they perform or their performances. So why would other people do that to me? But I think that's what I thought other people thought.
Yeah, I think, that's honest. I think as an athlete, often a big part of what you're trying to always do is get performances and times, and you get a lot of encouragement, with respect to that. And then when you sometimes do hit those numbers or those metrics, it's always like, good job, Almi, good job, do me well. And you're like, okay, well, maybe let me just keep playing into that. But you realize, that's not everything. But yeah, I think it's a natural thing that can happen if you're not conscious of it. But I'm curious about there's like a thread that I hear between there's athleticism, but in parallel, languages and communication at the same, always straddling each other. And I want to, hear about how those two parallels translated into the USA, because in many ways you're now in the USA. We're both in Washington, D.C. right now, and still straddling both lines of communication, languages, and athleticism. So maybe tell me about how that journey came to be.
Yeah, I think, people always said, oh, Almi travels too much to be a serious athlete. But I think, I don't know. After school, I took a year out and went to India and to Ethiopia. And India, I was seeing my family and went traveling around the country with a friend.
You have family in India as well?
Yeah, in Mumbai.
Cool.
And then Ethiopia, I was doing a bit more running. But though both those times, I guess, for the professional athlete or kind of that lifestyle weren't the typical. But I think those experiences have taught me a lot, and hopefully for the future. And I just think that they've taught me a lot for now. And I'm glad that I don't regret doing that and not spending a year, I don't know, being more serious about running. And I think it was in Spain, maybe, but running helped me learn Spanish and helped me make connections. And I guess that's when I realized how much or how cool it would be to kind of combine all of them. And in the States, I'm here because of running. I wouldn't be here if I wasn't running. So I think I see the other values or the other things that running has brought me. And Yeah, I mean, in the future, I don't know. These are things that I joke about, but they'd kind of be cool. But to go to India, because there's like an altitude camp there, and do some training there and spend time. Because obviously India's not known as a
running hub,
nation.
Sure.
Yeah. So kind of, but it's a huge country. So I'm like, surely there's good runners there.
Yeah, for sure.
And then go back to Ethiopia, spend some time training there. Kenya, like Eritrea, I'd love to go to. There's so many countries that I'd love to go visit. And I think it is possible as an athlete, but it is hard because so much of like the athlete lifestyle is so much about routine and consistency. And if you're constantly traveling, then that kind of cuts it out. But I think going abroad on like training camps for a few months and then coming back and racing and then,
Yeah, of course. Yeah, it's fascinating. I wonder why I guess everyone's into the thing that they're into. You could have come here and here for running and done mathematics. Or you could have come here and done, we're at the business or whatever that might be. Why modern journalism or, culture, communication, technology? Why that? And has that always been a thing that you've had? So for context, of course, you have your own YouTube channel, which is amazing, and it's got, and I go into I was going to the comments, I was doing my preparation, and everyone kept saying, you're a phenomenal storyteller, you're a really great storyteller, you're a really good storyteller. And often that comes from somewhere. So when did that even start? And, what is that about this degree you wanted to kind of maybe hone into? I don't know. Or are you even conscious of these things? Or are you just...
Like the whole thing about storytelling, I'm like, what? Really?
Have you seen the comments though? Have you seen?
Yeah,
people say that. People always, I'm like, wow, people... And I say that to you when
I would never have said that about myself. But yeah, it's definitely nice to hear. And I think telling other people's stories, I love hearing other people's stories. I think that's probably where it comes from. And especially when those stories are very different to what I've heard already. And I think that's why, whenever kind of people say, oh, what do you want to do in the future? I kind of say, oh, do you know Louis Theroux? Because he goes and interviews people who are very different to him, have crazy stories. And I think doing something like that is something that I would love to do because it would involve traveling, it'd involve learning about other cultures and ways of life. And I think that's something that I'm personally interested in. And then being able to share that in a way that also interests other people is, I guess, the challenge, and what kind of, would classify me as a good storyteller or not. Because I think probably from how I've grown up, I've been exposed to lots of different cultures and stories and ways of living. And a lot of my friends haven't. So then when speaking to them, it's like interesting seeing the differences. And I think a lot of the time when I have a problem, if I can get out of my little box and see the world as a big, in the bigger picture, then I realize, okay, this problem is not that big, or there's a way of solving this problem. So I think that's, I guess, like a big part of the storytelling.
I feel like there's anthropology, like this idea of studying culture, I think is a thing that comes up a lot. Or one through, of course, your story in terms of whether it's in Ethiopia or Spain, France, where else? Now in the UK, even if you look at your YouTube, I don't know if but often you're reflecting on America's kind of like this, or and you interview people, and you're like, you're not just like showcasing. You're showcasing it and yourself in it, but then also reflecting on what can I learn from being in this new environment, from the people I'm around and surrounded by each day. So it's kind of like an adventure, but also like a learning and discovery. And I think that can be replicated in other parts of the world, to your point. So you're doing it now. So if you can do it now, there's no reason, I'm sure, why you can't do it in the future elsewhere. But I wanted to figure out what has been the most interesting thing you've kind of learned by being in the US and so on, this storytelling and culture is in a different perspective. What have you learned? What are the biggest things you've learned by being here?
I think about myself or about the US?
Good question. Both.
Okay. I'd say about myself is that so in my training group, I was part of the girls team here at Georgetown, where we see each other every day at like 6 a.m. And at that time, I'm not very good at functioning. Or I'm getting better. Getting better.
Sure.
But I've realized that it's okay just to be listening and observing. And that is an important part of being a storyteller. So I'm enjoying practicing that skill, because I think I've in the past felt that I don't want to just be like hovering in a space. I feel like I need to contribute the whole time, but I don't think that's necessarily the case. And I guess probably a reason that makes that easy is that in Americans in general, I found like are very comfortable speaking. So like it's not like I need to fill a silence because
it's trust
there's
me,
enough
people.
voices. Yeah.
That is a beautiful thing about them, though, isn't it? Willing to take up space and be I don't know if loud is the right word, but yeah, just willing to take up space and be present.
Yeah. No, I was speaking, this was a few years ago, asking a friend in Ethiopia, like his experience between coming to visit the UK and the US. And he was like, oh, the US was a lot more friendly.
Yep.
And I can so see that now being here, because I feel like people here just will approach you or will start speaking to you or will be interested in a way that maybe in the UK people are, but they definitely don't ask. They're a lot more reserved.
They're so much more reserved. And not often, no one will just like strike up a conversation for no particular, well, I won't say no one, but it's not the commonplace. Whereas here it's almost like, oh gosh, can I just not be asked a question just for the sake of it,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really different culture, which is nice, I guess, for you to be and experience something different. I think you also, I was watching one of your videos when I was with you last week, and you found that, there's also this culture of, I don't know if it's not caring what other people think, but maybe to some degree, like in the US, there's this culture of like, well, I don't give a damn what other people, not that they always think that, but the way they express themselves, it feels that way at least. It's like, I'm American, I'm number one, with the best.
Yeah.
The best. Not in an arrogant way, but it's like an inner belief that they carry, which is fascinating to see.
Yeah. No, because I think we have, back like in the UK or Europe, there's kind of this stereotype that Americans are very kind of like trapped in America, or not trapped, but like, but then I think, I mean, I was saying that in a way there's like nice things to glean from that.
Yes.
That you're not constantly looking at other people and comparing yourself and kind of thinking, oh, what's happening over there? Oh, maybe it'd be nice over there. You're like, no, what I'm doing is great.
This is it.
And yeah.
I guess this is it. To that point, I want to ask you about what you're doing with your channel. I don't even like to use the word goal. I think that's, even with this, the goal is just to kind of tell stories about people who are telling stories. I guess with yourself, you said Louis Theroux would kind of be a really cool person to emulate. And when you started, the question, when you started this channel on YouTube, was it to say, okay, I want to build it to a particular number? Because sometimes people start something with the end in mind. Or was it for you, was it just pure expression? Like, I want to express myself and and I'm happy with that. Or is there like, this is the number, this quantity, you know what I mean? Like, what is the
I think,
reason?
It was more just wanting to express myself and reflect on being in America. I think this is such an amazing opportunity for me to be here and spend the next 2 years in DC, traveling around the US, competing. And I think I wanted to make sure, I don't know, yeah, like appreciate that experience. And so I decided to do that through YouTube. And yeah, I mean, it's a good way of practicing editing, filming, being comfortable speaking to different people. Because, in some of my videos, I go out and interview other people. So I think, they're useful skills for what I might want to do in the future.
Yes, I totally agree. I think it's such an important digital expression in storytelling. Is a really underrated but incredibly important skill. Now I want to kind of get into like the making of what you make. What parts do you enjoy and what parts do you hate? Because nothing is perfect. There are certain parts where you're like, oh, I love it when this happens, when I'm finished, let's say I've published or what have you, or I get feedback, etc. So maybe let's start with that, and then afterwards we can speak about this one part is like I find it really like kind of arduous. Yeah.
Okay, well, I love the feedback, so guys, no comment. No,
you get good feedback. You do get good feedback.
Yeah. And I think also feedback in terms of speaking to friends or people who can, even before I publish it, just like who I can bounce ideas off. I think I enjoy working with people. And I mean, just with friends, I'm just like, oh, what do you think? Do you think this is good? Or, and I think, which parts of I quite like the editing. It takes a long time, but I do it from my bed and around like workouts and practice. I am quite tired, so I like to spend time in bed, and editing is kind of a good middle ground where I'm doing something, but I can do it from home. And then I think this has happened once since starting, but it'll probably happen a bit more, like the longer I go on with it. But having the ideas for the videos, I think there was one week where I just didn't have an idea, or I just didn't feel inspired by anything. And because I'd set myself the goal of doing it, posting a video every week, it kind of was like, oh, like, what am I going to do? But I think then I just reminded myself, well, I'm documenting my journey. So like speak about being uninspired and speak about the times when you are finding it a bit harder. So
yeah, that's smart. Yeah, I think because you don't always, but I think what's interesting because you're also an athlete, and athletes have a discipline to like, well, I said I'm going to do this. In fact, when I spoke to you, you said when I started my YouTube channel, I gave myself a year because it's impossible to think that you're going to get good at anything within a year. Where did you get that thinking from? Was it just something that you've learned over time to know that, look, it takes a year to at least get halfway decent at something?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it goes back to what I said at the start about patience in sport. And I think that's taught me a lot about other aspects of life. But yeah, you can't expect to be good right from the start. And I think being able to enjoy seeing the improvements and enjoy the journey is an important part of it. So I think even with the YouTube, it's like I posted my first video and I knew it wasn't perfect, but you kind of got to just enjoy that part of it and like be like, well, this is going to get better. And I can see, I mean, I haven't actually watched my first one because I don't want to watch it again. But like my friends have said, oh, like, wow, this has improved a lot since the beginning. And I mean, I can even see the improvement and the way that I think around my videos just because I've been practicing it now for 2 months or 3 months. So,
yeah, that's such a refreshing perspective, because often sometimes like there's this push between being perfect and just putting something out there and starting, and often there's a bit of an emotional tension around well, I have this thing I want to tell, but sometimes people hold on to it for a long time without releasing it. I know some people who've just recorded stuff and they don't release it. I'm like, just put it out there. And they're like, oh, no, I have to just tweak it. And often you learn more once it's in public.
Mm-hmm.
I think, part of the difficult thing is being able to shift.
I think it's also not caring about what other people think, and that, going back to Americans, and I guess that's maybe, I don't think that's actually what, that's not, because I started before coming here. But yeah, in one of the interviews with my guy in Wisconsin.
Yes.
he
great guy.
said that I think the less you care about what other people think, kind of like the more free you are to do what you want to do. And I think that's something that has definitely helped me over the last few years.
I love that. To end off, Almi, I'm going to ask you, let's say we have a magic wand. I like to always do this exercise. We have a magic wand for, maybe not to put too much pressure on them, but for what the stories that you want to tell now and in the future. Like, you're like, wow, a year from now it would be pretty cool if...
A year from now?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, thing is, a year's not that much time.
It's a magic wand. There's no... There's no...
I think it would be cool to do some collaborations with people. Because, I've enjoyed doing the videos by myself, and but it's been very much me doing, directing all of it, which definitely has its positives, because especially around but I think I enjoy working with other people, and it'd be cool to work with other people to make some videos, or other projects.
Collabs.
Yeah.
Collaboration is the best. This is a collaboration right now, in a way. Okay, Almi, thank you so much. I wish you many more collaborations, much more success, many more great stories, locally and internationally. And thank you for taking the time to speak with me today.
Oh, thank you.
Thanks for tuning into Transformation Tales. We hope these stories inspired you to keep creating and sharing your voice with the world. Remember, every storyteller's journey is unique, but the courage to start and persist unites us all. Join us next week for more empowering tales of transformation.